Can you hear me now? How about now? How about now? Are we hearing? Is this? Yeah? No? Yeah? Maybe? Yay! I had no problem yesterday. I don't know what. Just thank you, StreamYard. You're a bunch of assholes. So thanks, dickheads. But I am gonna send you a link. I totally forgot I didn't send you a link yesterday, Bray, because you weren't here. But I'm gonna today because I was hoping to have you yesterday. Yeah. So what I was telling you guys is, welcome. Don't try to use your Venmo. It's like down right now. I just got like an alert from like one of these things that I follow that tells me when like certain things are down, like Cash App, Venmo, Amazon. Amazon had an outage or is still in an outage today. Apparently, I have no idea. All right, let's see. Let me send this to Brie real quick. So redunculous. Ugh. Damn it. God damn it. Brie, text me your email because it's not in this email that I'm signed into, please. And then I can do it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Cash App is working, apparently. Yes. Cash App is working. Venmo is not. Just so y'all know, don't try to buy groceries or gas or anything with your Venmo card because it is, yeah, right. I just checked mine. Unable to load page. And then, so I guess it's a huge outage right now. So strange, but whatever. Yeah, I'm going to check the Cash App just to make sure. I don't know. Sometimes when one is down, all are down. So you are correct on that one. Let me check. Ah! I didn't just drop my phone on the floor. My Cash App's working. Yeah. No, don't check. Oh, don't check your email. I said send me your email. Like text me your email. I mean, my Cash App looks fine. So I guess that one's not down. Just the Venmo, I guess. People don't use a lot of Cash App, to be honest. I think I get a Cash App every like once in a blue moon. Oh, thank you, Ellen. Ellen sends $20. Thank you, Ellen. I love you. But okay, so it looks like Cash App's working. That's a good thing. Venmo apparently is not right now. Yeah, that's why you guys get PayPal, though. That's the one thing. I don't understand why they don't make PayPal, I mean, Cash App and Venmo, like extend it to Canada. That doesn't really make sense to me. Like, okay, I can understand not wanting to extend it like to every country. But Canada, like, okay, I know you have an exchange rate, like we get it, but why not extend Cash App and Venmo to Canada? That just doesn't really make sense to me. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, I'm going to punch this in. All right. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I'm going to point out a few things that I actually didn't see anybody talking about, which was really strange. I mean, I think it was like one person I talked about with it that also noticed it, or maybe it was something I watched that someone else noticed that I did. But there was one specific thing that I noticed that apparently not a lot of people picked up on. So I want to talk about that. Sorry, until I get a desk, I am still waiting on this desk. Literally been waiting forever. I have to compromise with using a chair. I have tall like bar top stools, and like I'm already tall in my chair, so like I might have to make my chair go down a little bit. All right, I sent it. It's not my normal email that I usually send it for. Like, yes, of course. Hello. Okay. So I'm gonna pull up the hearing. We are not going to listen to Alessi talk for 4 hours about legitimately nothing. Like, we're just not going to do that. That's yeah, no, we're not doing that. So, but yeah, I can't. It was insufferable. You have no idea the amount of text messages, emails, like messages on Twitter, Facebook that I got. People were like, I don't know how you sat through that. How? I don't know how. Like it was insufferable. Like literally, like I don't. He literally said absolutely 4 hours. 4 hours that man talked for. And I will tell you, he said a whole lot of nothing. And as a matter of fact, what he did say absolutely did not help. Like, did not help his defense team in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I don't know how some people didn't fall asleep, to be honest. I checked in on everybody and was like, you made it through that, right? And most people made it through it, albeit suffering listening to it, because I know we did here. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like what we are listening to right now is absolutely freaking bonkers. Like, first of all, let me just point out a few things before I pull this up real quick. Alessi talked for 4 hours, didn't say anything. But what he did say was he patronized the judge. He told the judge that, well, he was telling the judge what she said, right? And what she meant. And then he even went as far as to give definitions of the words the judge used. Lawyering 101, okay? Lawyering 101. Don't piss off the judge. Definitely don't patronize the judge. And most certainly don't insult the judge's intelligence. Like, this is like rookie mistake. Like, come on, man. Like, also, funny thing is, he actually specializes in like environmental law. No wonder why he's bad at this. You know, he usually works for like big corporations and stuff for like environment. That's his specialty, is like environmental law. So like, yeah. So he also had to concede to the court that he's not going to say that ARCCA isn't biased, which is like the crux of like what Brennan is arguing, which is like they can't be allowed in because A, we don't have all the discovery, B, we have no like trust anymore in the defense that they're going to give us everything that they're supposed to give us, and C, they're not an independent neutral witness as they've been trying to make them out to be this entire time. So they're biased, right? They're biased towards the defense. And unless you just handed that to the judge, Your Honor, I'm not going to say they're not biased. Well, that was fucking stupid. Why didn't you just say nothing? You could have just said nothing, Alessi. Like at one point, there was a couple things he said. Like if you looked over at Karen, she actually went and like widened her eyes. Like, why do you just say that? She was just like why? Why the hell? Like he would have been fired after yesterday. Like, I mean, he would have already been fired if he was one of my attorneys because he's just not good at it. But like that whole word salad, like just so we're clear here, what we talked about before they started getting, like before he did that 4 hours, what did I say was going to happen? Because we can go back and watch the footage, but obviously I'm not going to watch the footage of myself telling you guys. But what did we say? We said, hey, they're going to try to word salad their way out of it. They're going to try to point fingers at the Commonwealth. Well, the Commonwealth misstated, blah, blah, blah. Like that's what they do, except the difference is the Commonwealth corrects themselves right away and the defense waits almost a year. So that's, you know, until they're literally, and here's the thing, on the 12th, February 12th is the day that the U.S. Attorney's Office started giving more TUI information, right? Here's the thing. Now that Levy is gone, they knew by that first batch of TUI stuff that whether the U.S. Attorney's Office was going to just give them the same shit or they were going to be a little bit more transparent and give them more shit. And obviously, as we know, they were a little more transparent. They were giving more shit that Levy held back last time. So there's no mistake that then on the 13th, Jackson hands over this. He was forced to. He did not have a choice. He did not have it. It would have looked worse if the U.S. Attorney's Office handed over, which is why he did not have a choice. Did not. There was no choice to be had, literally. Like, well, no, the cases that he cited, one wasn't even pro hoc VJ, and one completely was like, it was about one of the cases where one of the attorneys was doing a cross examination or even a direct, I can't remember. I think a cross examination, and another lawyer passed a note. So like, yes, something that they shouldn't have done, but nothing of this magnitude. And the other case he cited is not even a pro hoc VJ case. It really has no relevance and has no legal teeth, really, whatsoever. I don't really even know why he cited it, to be honest. Like, I have no idea. Like, oh, that's bad. Anybody see like his, rotary cut right there in the middle there? He's got a little rotary going on right here. It's a little bald rotary spot. Yeah. Little bald rotary spot. But I mean, dude, the guy did not help himself. He literally did not. Not by a long shot. Like, the notebook. Oh, the notebook was cute, right? Your Honor, I have a notebook. Yeah, defined what receipt. He wants to define everything because in reality, all the defense wants to do is mince words, right? They want to say, well, Your Honor, we said you have never met us, correct? Now, let's be clear. The only reason Jackson would say you never met us is because he knows they had spoken. And so he used specific words so that he could go back later and use plausible deniability, which unfortunately for him isn't working anymore because, like Brennan said, the representations that were made and then the statements that were also made after that don't squash together with what they're claiming. It just doesn't.
There's also this rather hanging over their heads issue that in court in June, Alan Jackson said that he had not spoken to ARCCA, but there is an email predating that hearing. And in that email, they refer to a phone call they had, which means he had spoken to them twice before
Bingo.
that. He lied to the judge's face.
No, that's what the judge was kind of pissed off about, is that she asked him during a sidebar and he still lied to the judge. And so once again, he's very careful with his words and the way that he says things. And he does that on purpose. There's a reason he does that. He does it so he can go back later and say, well, Your Honor, I didn't say this. I said this. And I'm sorry, but maybe that works a lot in California. But once again, he made a misstep where he doesn't seem to realize California and Massachusetts are two totally different effing places. And what works there certainly is not going to work here. The judges here are not going to appreciate that. I can tell you that, firsthand. Like, that's not something they like, is when you mischaracterize by trying to play wordplay. Like, that's not, the mental gymnastics that had to be done yesterday. Like, for Alessi to sit there and make arguments about pointing fingers at pretty much everybody except, and here's the thing, he didn't answer anything. He didn't answer any questions. The defense brought in no affidavits. They brought in no other pieces of information that would prove to the court that it was just some misunderstanding, right? And as a matter of fact, they didn't even freaking talk for themselves. They had Alessi, the person who wasn't even there for the first trial, talk for themselves. Like, Yannetti looked like he was ready to explode. That's how stressed he was. Jackson tried to play it off coy, but there were a few times that I looked at him and you could tell, like, there were some things that Alessi said that he knew shot him in the foot immediately. And he was just like, oh, dear God, why the hell did I allow him to speak for us? You would have had a better chance of speaking for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you would have. Like,
oh, when she nailed him down in person and made him stand up and answer her, and Alan going, well, I didn't remember the sidebar. And she,
bullshit.
well, I did.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, when I looked at the transcript, and I'm sure that's when you did. And she was like, no, I remembered it long before that.
Yeah, because everyone did. Yeah.
Do not try to insinuate to her face that she's an idiot.
Didn't remember. Well, also, don't
we
try
were
to insinuate.
there.
Right. That that you forgot. That was her, like, I think it was ultimately her point, without saying, like, don't say you didn't forget. You didn't effing forget. Like, he didn't forget, dude. Everyone on planet Earth remembers it. I remember it. You remember it. Everybody remembers what was said and when it was said. Like, there's no, getting your way out of this. Like, there just isn't. Unfortunately for them, there just is no way out. Like,
because we called it out then. We
We
called
did.
it out then. We were like, this makes absolutely no sense. There is no way that he is
Yep.
hinging his entire case on 3 witnesses he has never spoken to.
I
He's not
called
putting them on the stand without knowing what they're going to say. No way.
exactly. Both me and you and whoever was on that day, we all on my channel, and we can all go back because all my videos are still there, and you can watch us call bullshit. We're like, no, there's no way. Sorry, that didn't happen. Like, that's not no effing way. Like, you're not gonna tell me you only called them and said, okay, you need to be here at this time in this place, and that's it. No freaking way, dude. No way. There's just no chance. I'm sorry, there isn't. Like, sorry, I'm trying to get it up on one of the channels that were a little louder, and I see it on Law and Crime, but I'm trying to find a different channel that was louder to be able to play it.
I'm very, very curious about the 147-page motion to dismiss that was embargoed until an hour ago. The press has it now.
They do. Oh shit, that means I probably have it in an email. Hold on.
Yep, the press got it an hour ago.
Let me find this. I will tell you that as far as I understand, it's filled with nonsense, of course, as we figured. Lots more word salad, wordplay, blame, but no real teeth, of course. Okay, wait, here's
And
Court
it's
TV.
blowing my mind reading some of the tweets and the interpretation
Oh
of
my
the
God.
YouTube attorneys that I used to respect. Their interpretation is so wildly different from what I thought we saw.
But that's the thing. You have to know that their interpretation, they know for a fact that what they're saying doesn't match what's actually happening in the courtroom. They know that.
Larry is out here threatening to kill Judge Cannoni.
Yeah, strangle her. I saw that. I saw that.
What, Larry? What? And Rob's in on it now too. What the hell, Rob?
Listen,
You were the last one I had any respect for. Last one I had any respect for was Rob.
Well, unfortunately,
they're all gone.
This is I mean, here's the thing. They want the clicks, the views, all that, happy horse shit. Like, they care more about that than they do what the truth is. Clearly, I do not. Obviously, money would be nice, and it would be nice to be, appreciated for the work that you do. And I've done a damn lot of work on this goddamn case.
And they're back to the stupid ring footage from the library. And why doesn't it exist? Because she didn't drive past the library the second time, you dumbass.
She didn't drive past there, so it doesn't exist. For me, it's like, I don't care if it costs me the donos from a bunch of zombies. I'm not gonna lie. It's just that simple. I never made my channel for that. The reason I made my channel is because I know 2 people personally who have gone missing over the years of my life. One, a friend and roommate of mine, Miguel. One, my friend's mother. I made my channel to help, to get information out to the public so that maybe they had more information to bring light to things, whether it's an ongoing case, a cold case, an old case, a missing person. The whole point was to get information out to the public, or to have people know that there's someone they can trust who, if they don't want to tell the cops, cool, fine. They don't have to. But there are anonymous ways to get that information to the investigators so that they can bring people home, right? Or they can solve a case, or justice can be served without you having to involve yourself. And I just wanted to do some good. This case has shown that cases can destroy people's lives who haven't even done anything wrong. Like, the amount of harassment I've gotten just from this case alone is unprecedented. It's insane. It's unhinged. If you're going based on what a blogger told you, and he can call himself a journalist until he's purple in the face, that man is not a journalist. Journalists actually check information, more than one source. They source their shit. They don't just go on what someone sent them in Facebook Messenger and then report it out to the world. That's not it. Like, yes, I did see that. I oftentimes send quite a few things over to the court and the DA's office if I think it is threatening, important, intimidating, whatever. I will email it right on over to them and make sure that it gets into the hands of the people that it's supposed to. Yeah, well, that's another thing. You cover it, you watch it, you maybe give your opinions, but you certainly don't become part of the story. And there's ethics in journalism, even non-mainstream media journalism. There are ethics, okay, that you have to follow. Like, You don't just get to accuse people of being murderers, go outside their house with bullhorns, and then be like, I didn't do anything wrong, guys. What do you mean? I went to jail for 60 days for speaking out for Karen Read. If I have to hear that lie one more time, I might bash my head off my wall. He didn't go to jail for Karen Read. He went to jail because he threatened his ex-girlfriend. He went to her house, threatened her, intimidated her, like, and he was already doing that previous to going there that day. Like, he just did it in person that time, and tortured her for 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever it was, however many hours, mentally and emotionally. Okay. So he didn't go to jail for speaking for Karen or for helping Karen. He went to jail because he committed crimes. That's usually what happens. The journalism had zero to do with what he did that day and why he ended up in jail for it. Like,
Twitter does know
no.
who the two people were who were threatening Brennan's life too. They spotted them by their voice.
Ooh, I was looking for one of them. One of the people, actually, I was looking. If anybody knows who the woman is that held the sign about Paul, please inbox me and let me know, because I would like to know who that person is, because that's disgusting. That is disgusting. If you feel the need to follow a murder victim's brother with a sign because a blogger told you he was bad with his fake and doctored receipts, and let me just, oh God, let me let you guys in on a little secret. 90% of the time, Aiden makes shit up, literally. And I kid you not when I say, like, he'll literally make up text messages and then crop them and then show you guys the parts that, like, he wants to, like, go with his narrative. Like, and we know this for a fact because he's done it to some people, including myself. So literally, he will make up whatever he has to that goes with his narrative. Like, I hope people realize that it's not rocket science at this point, but apparently to the cult it is. Like, it is rocket science, apparently. Like,
Word on Twitter is that the guy who threatened to put Brennan under Whitey,
oh yeah.
his name starts with SWE and ends
Oh, I
with
know him. Yeah.
NEY, and
Yeah.
there's an E in the middle.
Yeah. Yep. I know that guy. Yep. Wasn't the last time we, like, really heard from him the time that he, like, had to go out there and, like, finger wag at Tom? Tom's a bad person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and leaving out, the discussion about leaving out the part about pedestrians being hit more in the dark. No, that doesn't. They're all like, "Ooh, but isn't the Commonwealth contention that she hit him on purpose? Why does it being after dark matter?" Because it's statistics, you dumbass.
Thank you. Yep.
They're
Thank
just
you.
withholding the statistics. That's not a good thing.
Even if it wasn't that they were withholding the statistics, it's not about what was said in it. It's about the fact that Brennan didn't have that communication at all. That's what people are missing. It's not even about what was said in it. It's the fact that that whole communication in and itself was hidden from the Commonwealth. And I made this argument obviously yesterday before we did this, like, and I've made it on Twitter before they had the hearing, like, you guys are missing the point. Like, you cultists are missing the point. It's not about what was said about the dark. It's about the whole communication being hidden. And Brennan's right. There are other communications that clearly exist that they clearly don't want to give up. It's not, there's no way that they don't exist, because there's a way that that relationship had to have reconnected after they paused. Brennan is correct. Like, let's,
And it happened before he told the judge he had never
yep.
spoken to them.
And that's another thing. The timeline that Brennan gave is freaking amazing, because I told you guys before he got up there, you were going to be
And
amazed by him.
everybody who's clamoring and saying, well, why didn't Lolly bring it up in June? He tried.
He
He
didn't,
knew the
yeah.
fuck shit was going on. He
Oh, yeah, but
didn't
you got
have
to prove
access
it.
to the evidence.
You got to prove it. You can't just say fuck shit's happening with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just be like, oh, these fucking jerk offs, like, without actually, like, having something to be like, and this is what they did. Like, here's the thing. Brennan also brought up, like, Your Honor, you need to take in consideration the history of, like, the defense and their mischaracterizations, and how many of those have they made? Well, do we not remember when they came out in court and said the federal government said they cannot let this case go to trial, and the federal government had to come out that very day and actually make a statement saying that is not true. We did not say that. That's a mischaracterization. That is a lie to the court. It's not the first time, and this is the point. That's Brennan's point. But I think we should listen to what Judge Cannoni says at the very beginning of the hearing, because this is the crux of it. She didn't need to hear anything. She didn't need to hear 4 hours of Alessi. She looked at all the evidence. right? So it was, you could talk if you want, you can make an argument if you want, but she's already looked at what she needs to look at. So let's listen to her tell us, because her telling us is quite interesting. Unmute. If I can get it to the point where she,
Both sides are responsible for discovery. They both have to.
What's wrong with these burger buns?
They can't sit on
They
shit.
taste perfectly delicious.
They can't.
Mishap. Their bottoms are slightly curved instead of flat.
It's called reciprocal discovery. Both sides have to give it. So once the Commonwealth gives everything, then the defense then has to give what's called reciprocal discovery. They cannot withhold anything.
They can't pop shit on each other on the stand.
Yeah, I'm a law nerd, if you didn't already know. Like, I've been studying law for like 26 years, so I pretty much have an answer for most things. I don't know everything on planet Earth, just like no attorney does. Most attorneys don't even know what air rights are, but I know a lot.
You are unmuted.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Read. Can I have counsel identify themselves, starting with the Commonwealth?
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Adam Lauer for the Commonwealth. Good
Good
morning.
morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hank Brennan for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson for Ms. Read.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf of Ms. Read.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
Good morning, Your Honor. Robert Alessi on behalf of Ms. Read.
Mr. Alessi.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Giannetti for Karen Read.
Good morning, Ms. Giannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right. So last week, upon hearing of a previously undisclosed relationship, perhaps, between defense counsel and the ARCCA witnesses, I took a recess here. We suspended. I had heard about email communication, detailed communication, memorializing a conversation regarding an engagement letter and a promise of retainer on March 20th and 22nd of last year, roughly 2 months before the ARCCA witnesses testified. There is another email that was 2 days before the trial and after the voir dire, 2 days before the trial, with a list of cases. The Sunday before the witness testified, there's a proposed script of questions and answers and suggestions. And after the trial, there is an invoice or a bill, not just for reimbursement of travel and expenses, but for trial prep. Clearly, the ARCCA witnesses were expecting to get paid. So the Commonwealth, I suspended for 3 reasons. The Commonwealth raised questions of candor with counsel in the court regarding the Rule 14 obligations. And frankly, I didn't think it was fair to have defense counsel stand up and have to answer to that without the opportunity to reflect, to talk to each other, to look at transcripts, to consult with people, and that it made sense to give you some time to do all of that, because what the Commonwealth does raise serious issues, not just the rights of counsel, but Ms. Read's right to a fair trial and all that entails. So it made sense to me to suspend first and foremost for that reason, so counsel can be prepared to make any comments if you choose to. Second reason is what the Commonwealth told us is inconsistent with my memory. So I wanted to make sure that my memory was right. So in a way to do that, I went back and reviewed the transcripts again. I started with the June 10th transcript of the discussion with Ms. Giannetti, where I raised my skepticism about defense counsel in a murder case calling not one, but potentially 3 witnesses that you never talked to. I looked back at the June 18th voir dire hearing, the June 24th trial testimony of the ARCCA witnesses, and the June 25th closing arguments of counsel. So after reviewing that, And my memory was pretty good about that. But what concerned me most is the memory that I had of a discussion here at Sidebar on February 6th.
Here it is.
3 weeks ago, not last June, outside the hearing of everybody in this courtroom. And at the time, I was operating under the assumption that counsel was unable to provide the Rule 14 discovery because of a federal protective order. And the discussion at Sidebar clearly revealed that, and counsel did nothing to disabuse me of that. So I asked the trial court to expedite a hearing, a transcript of that hearing. Mr. McDermott's going to mark it as evidence. And at that point, Mr. Jackson, when you didn't answer me at first, but when you did, you said, I can tell you this. The Commonwealth is saying pursuant to Rule 14, and you know, exclusion and preclusion of a witness is a punitive sanction for Rule 14 violations. Ms. Read has not violated anything. Why should she be penalized when the Commonwealth has the exact same batch of information that we have about these witnesses? So I don't have any more information. I don't have any additional discovery. I didn't hire them. I didn't ask them to engage in additional protocols. So I've got nothing else to give Mr. Brennan. He's got the same information I got, and he got it at the same time. So
Well, that's a lie.
concerning to me. Jim, do you have a copy of that there?
And yeah, the lie detector discovered that was a lie. So like the whole point is like, not only, and Brennan nails this, like the very last thing he says is really what nails them in this whole hearing, but that's February 6th, okay? Fast forward 10 days to February 16th, they file a motion with the court on the docket about how they are opposing the Commonwealth's motion to keep ARCCA out, right? And in said motion, they write, we did not hire or pay the ARCCA experts. They are wholly independent. Come again? The 16th of February, days ago. 11 days ago. I'm sorry, what? No.
And now people are claiming that pointing out that Dr. Wolf's wife was a member of the Facebook group and left is somehow doxing, even though she was doing that under her legal name.
You know, it's funny because they're like, oh, ARCCA had to take their Twitter down because they were bullied. I'm sorry, hold on. Let me get my little tiny violin to play it for ARCCA for the almost 2.5 years since the winter of 2023 that I have been fucking harassed and sent emails, text messages, phone calls, like you name it, it's been done. Like literally, deliveries showing up in my house that I can't pay for because they're not paid for. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking the amount of bullying and harassment. Like, I don't want to hear you heard some bad comments you didn't like on Twitter. I live that every day. Go a step further. Nobody came to your house. People aren't calling your kids' school. They're not sending deliveries to your house. Like, dude, stop it. I don't want to hear about ARCCA being bullied. They weren't fucking bullied. They got called out for lying. They are expert witnesses. Like, sorry, not sorry, but if you're going to be an expert witness, maybe, just maybe, you need to learn to have thicker skin and take a little bit of criticism when you are not being truthful. Otherwise, maybe just don't lie and then you don't have to worry about it. I don't want to hear they were bullied and they shut down their Twitter. Like, if that's bullying, then everything that you people do every single day, Free Karen Read, go look at yourself in the mirror. Until then, I will hold the tiny violin.
And maybe if people watching what you do on Facebook is doxing, don't join the Free Karen Read page under your legal name the day your husband testifies.
That's another thing. She didn't wait. She did it the day he testified, which obviously leads one to believe they were very Free Karen Read before he testified. Come on, stop it. Like, that's just ridiculous. Oh, hey. Yes,
I mean, we fucking sat here and watched her join. We didn't force her. We watched her.
Right. I sent those over, B Tim, to the DA's office specifically. They are bad.
Oh, beat him. Those photos with him talking to Billy Boy in the background. Oh man, those look bad.
Well, here's the thing. You have Rentschler sitting there eating lunch with them on the day he testifies. I'm sorry. If you are a wholly independent, then you go have lunch by yourself. You come back to court if you need to by yourself. Also, if you can pop on, beat him, you tell me. I'll just send you a link, sir. But you are right. Like when you're not at work, I mean, obviously when you're free. But they're very bad. Very, very bad. Like very, very bad. Like, yeah, it was during trial. Day 28 or 29 of trial.
That was the day they testified.
It was the day they testified. The day they testified. Like, oh my God, if he says meal of food, I swear to God. Like the stupidest things people like, oh, he said meal of food. Yeah, what do you think?
But he will use his words,
an idiot.
as
Like,
opposed to his emotions. He will use his words to explain the words and what the words actually mean in the meaning of the words.
Yeah, didn't you know? Like the amount of linguistic gymnastics that Alessi did yesterday was, a meal of word salad is much better. Like, was amazing to me. I'm sorry, but it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life because he sat there for 4 hours complaining about the Commonwealth, saying it was the feds they got the information from. It's irrelevant who got the information, like where Brennan got it. The point is he got it and you hit it. That's the ultimate point. Also, he walked up to the podium when he realized it and corrected it. He didn't wait a year to get caught. There's a big fat difference. People misstate or misspeak or forget things all the time in court. Lawyers do it all the time. When they realize it, sometimes the judge will even correct them, dates, times, all that stuff.
And they have to realize that the FBI was not investigating John O'Keefe's death. The FBI was investigating the investigation.
Yes.
So they weren't actually checking to see if Karen
did
John
it or didn't do it.
They were checking to see if it was possible that the police fudged the results. And the answer was no. So ARCCA's report isn't actually even relevant to whether or not Karen hit John. It's whether or not the investigators fudged the results with the taillight, and the answer is no. So ARCCA's report, when you get right down to it, isn't even relevant because the facts of loss they were operating from were the wrong ones.
That's the other thing. You're talking about people who are supposed experts in text stream data, but they don't ask for the text stream data. Quite interesting. And I'll tell you this much. My opinion is, and that's another thing I also sent over to the DA's office, that ARCCA's parent company is linked to Mr. Alessi. Guess who's on the board of that parent company? So that got sent over to them because I think that's important information for them to know.
How is that not an immediate disqualification for COI?
Well, this is why I say, like, I don't think there's a chance she lets Betterow on. You cannot have the interest of, like, you can't weigh the interest of two clients that have competing. Like, that's why if you hire an attorney for your divorce, your ex-husband also can't hire the same attorney because they can't weigh one person's over the other. You have a duty to your client. And you can't say that you have more of a duty to this one than this one. That's not how it works. Just not. So yes, I sent that information also over to the DA's office before court. Yes, like I think it was the night before I sent it over to them. But this is cray cray. Like, there are some things they'll probably put in, like, motions that Brennan will put in motions that he won't say out in public because he doesn't want to look like he's splitting hairs. He doesn't want to look like he's playing a let's point at who, but it is important information for the judge to have. So I guarantee he'll probably put it in like a pleading in a way instead of, saying, and that's another thing. I want to point out a lot of, the Turtle writers missed this one. Who walked in with Paul O'Keefe? Can anybody answer the question? Because I can. Who walked into the court right behind Paul O'Keefe? Anyone? Helena Rafferty, CPD's chief. Why does Karen Read think that Helena was there? Anyone? I can tell you. Rafferty was there because if Hank had gotten to the motion that it applied to, which he had not, since at least he was trying to run down the clock for that very reason, then he was going to explain to the judge that the federal investigation is now closed and has been for a year. I will also point out that if you go back a year to my live streams, I told you people, told you guys through my sources, I had already confirmed it was closed, and all they found was text messages from Proctor. That's it. That's all they found. Nothing else. No corruption. No nothing. They found nothing.
And I would just like to point out to all the FKR experts on Twitter, it's ARCCA, please, not ARRCA. The first three letters stand for Alan R. Cantor, the founder of the company. Can you please get it right?
Yep. Yeah, that the stuff that they had will be marked and entered because they read it onto the record. So it will be marked. But that was one of the things that people didn't pick up on. One of the other things people did not pick up on was there is a reason, in my opinion, there is a reason Judge Cannoni, and actually I'm going to play it. There is a reason why she waited for Alessi to do his whole freaking 4-hour spiel of nonsense to then ask the defense counsel, hey, is everything he said correct? Did he make any misrepresentations? Now, why is it, do you think, that Judge Cannoni would ask that question? Because I can tell you what I've seen judges do and why she would ask a question like that. She would ask a question like that because that way, once she decides what's going to happen, what sanctions or what sort of punishment is going to happen, and they try to appeal said thing, which she ultimately knows will happen, they will try to appeal it. They cannot go back and say, well, this wasn't correct, this wasn't right, and this wasn't right. Because this is why the judge asked each one of them to answer. Did Mr. Alessi make any misrepresentations? Any at all? And yes, let's point out that it is technically a crime. And I think the thing is like 20 years for like that kind of crime, a perjury in mass, like especially when you're an attorney, like that's just a no-no. But most people did not pick up on the fact that Judge Cannoni asked them, did he make any misrepresentations? Mr. Jackson, Mr. Yannetti, and they all said no. And that's so that when they go to appeal, she can say, it's in the transcript now. She asked them if there was any misrepresentations. There's no, so they have to stick to that story that they just gave, which is absurd. And they're basically told them, like, parts of it they admitted to, which is like, you're not going to say that ARCCA is not biased. Now you can't change that. That's not changeable now, right? And you have to stick with that very chaotic story of nothingness that they just didn't know. They just had no idea, and they just forgot 5 times over that they paid these witnesses after the trial, and they also forgot they had emails and phone calls, and they just forgot all of it. Like, no judge believes that. And Cannoni certainly doesn't. No judge, no attorney I know believes it. Like, so it's just not a thing. Like, and that's the thing. None of them could even summarize, or probably would summarize what Alessi said, because I don't even think they know what the fuck he said, to be honest. But there was a whole reason, in my opinion, why Judge Cannoni did this, and we're going to play it. And those are the reasons. And no one picked up on it except one person I was talking to, and I was like, bravo. I'm not the only one. There is someone else who picked up on it. Brilliant. All right, let's go. Let's watch it, because it is a brilliant, in my opinion, absolutely brilliant by the judge to make sure that you get them on record saying this shit. Like, yep, oh, yep, he's right. Come on, dude. What's happening, computer?
Morning, Ms. Giannetti. Good morning, Ms. Reed.
Oh!
All right.
Okay, we're not doing
so,
it. Up here. It's right around-ish, here-ish. Now we play.
Both sides. Weight loss
Oh, for
medications
fuck's
you can
sake. Come
actually
on, man.
afford? Yes. At Zelthy, providers can prescribe
Yeah, yeah,
GLP-1
yeah,
medications
yeah.
that are 90% less expensive.
But actually, what I want to do, and you said I could ask questions of other counsel. So while memories are fresh, I just want to ensure the accuracy of what was just said. So I'm certainly not going to order counsel to answer my questions. You don't have to, but I am curious. So we're going to start with you, Mr. Yannetti.
Yes, ma'am.
As an officer of the court, is there anything that you dispute that you just heard from Mr. Alessi? And what I'm particularly concerned about is what you knew or what you didn't know.
No, what he said was entirely accurate.
Okay? Mr. Jackson, same questions.
No, and I would simply elucidate with regard to the February 6th sidebar comment. As I look back at I didn't remember making the comment one way or the other. I didn't remember that sidebar.
I did.
Well, I'm sure the court did after it looked at the transcript. I did as well after I looked at the transcript.
I did long before.
Right. The context of that, what was in my brain when I said we don't have anything else to give, which when I reviewed the transcript, was very clearly the federal batch of information, what we referred to as the federal dump. I did not have in my head at all emails, communications.
That's what discovery is. Stop it.
Invoices, payment.
No,
Stop it.
I was, because the context of what Mr. Brennan was talking about, being frustrated about, were his TUI requests concerning the federal batch of information. And that's when I was making the additional statement. We don't have anything that they don't have concerning the federal information and the background information for the ARCCA experts. That was it.
Your Honor, if I could, this is the.
Nope, hold on. Ms. Little, it was just thrown on you that you're responsible for all discovery. But the same question, and again, you don't have to answer, but is there anything that you dispute in the accuracy of what Mr. Alessi told me about what you knew and what you didn't know and when?
No, Your Honor, I would just add that as soon as the court issued the order, I obviously was not in court that day, but as soon as the court issued the order that ARCCA reciprocal discovery be provided, I gathered those documents and I provided it.
I gathered. I didn't find them. I gathered them.
I guess, prompt for going to look to see if we could satisfy the 10 things that were outlined.
But you didn't look any other time before that to satisfy it.
So I'm going to
Discovery.
hear from the Commonwealth now. It does not look like we'll finish this today because we'll be ending around 4 o'clock. But I will hear you, Mr. Brennan.
Just going to pause it for a second before we actually listen to Brennan actually destroy them and give a few comments. In my opinion, and in the 26 years that I have been studying law, I have seen judges do this a million times. And most of the time is to put counsel on notice that everything that was just stated is true. That way later on, they cannot go back and be like, well, this thing wasn't true, if they find a way to try to weasel out of it. They all stood up like idiots and were like, yep, nope, yeah, that's true. Oh, I was thinking about the federal materials. Mind you, the whole thing they were talking about was not just the federal materials. It was providing discovery and reciprocal discovery. It wasn't, oh, Mr. Jackson just forgot that he had phone calls, bills, paid a bill for ARCCA and emails. So he just forgot not just that time, but 5 other damn times when it came to reciprocal discovery or providing any discovery. No judge believes that. That judge doesn't believe it. No one on planet Earth in the legal field who's not a free Karen Read grifter believes it. It's unbelievable. And to say that ARCCA thought they were going to get paid by the federal government, ARCCA has a federal government contract. They knew where their funds from the federal government were coming from. I also sent that over to the DA's office and Hank Brennan's law office because they had a federal contract. They knew they were getting paid, what they were getting paid from the federal government and for what. They didn't need to keep track like that for who they were talking to when it came to Mr. Jackson, because the federal government already had in writing a agreement with them. So that's bogus and a lie. And I'm sure when Hank tries to get that information and those records, he's going to find their agreement and say, really, Your Honor, now are we going to say that the ARCCA witnesses magically thought maybe the federal government was going to pay them? Like, No, it was very clear. The federal protection order was clear. They broke it. It's not hard. Like, and they've broken it more than once. It's not the first time. Like, and this was Brennan's point, which is they have no, it's the word I'm looking for here. They have no faith, basically, that the defense is going to be forthcoming with any information, because they're not. Let's get real. They're really, unfortunately, not going to be forthcoming with information when it comes to this case. They never have been. Just like Bree said earlier, like the people who were co-hosting with me on my show the entire time we streamed the trial, we called it out then. There's no way you're going to put 3 witnesses on the stand that you have never spoken to about what they're going to say and let them say it. It's not going to happen. Even the judge questioned it at that point, because that's how unbelievable it is. I also, before I play the rest of Brennan, I'm going to point out something funny real quick, because it'll come up after Brennan makes his thing. In between the time of Brennan stopping Alessi talking for another goddamn how many minutes, and then Brennan picked. Okay, I don't know what just happened. Is there a buffering out of nowhere? Am I still buffering? I hope not. Tell me if I'm still buffering, because on my end, it looks like it's back to normal. But in between the time Brennan stops and Alessi talks again, Brennan talks about how they were talking about 3 ARCCA witnesses. They were. That's what the judge was asking about, because at the time, it was Rentschler, it was Wolf, and there was a third guy by the name of, oh God, what the hell was the guy's name? There was a third ARCCA guy. The defense moved forward with 2 of those ARCCA witnesses, and they didn't tell the court that until afterwards. Then they said, well, we're only going to move forward with Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler. The third guy, they didn't move forward with. So Brennan talks about that a little in this, and apparently Alessi's off in La La Land thinking about what word salad he's going to put together, because then he gets up for about 10 minutes and argues to the judge that the third witness was the dog lady, Marie Russell, and it absolutely wasn't. And then the judge has to correct him. She lets him go on and on, but he literally didn't listen to what Brennan said, because he got up there and argued something Brennan wasn't even arguing at all. And he talks about how the 3 people weren't 3 ARCCA people. And then the judge is like, that's what I was talking about when Mr. Brennan read that transcript, was the 3 ARCCA witnesses. Because Brennan goes on to say, well, why didn't they move forth with the third? There has to be a reason they didn't move forth with the third. And you wouldn't know what that reason was. Now, from the report, it doesn't say which doctor did what. So how would you know what 2 were more important? Unless the third didn't do much at all, or his opinion you didn't want. But from reading the report, you don't know whose opinions are what. Therefore, there has to be other communications where Alan Jackson, Yannetti, Little, whoever asks, well, who did what and who's going to give what opinion, for them to cut out the third ARCCA guy. Obviously, whatever that guy was going to say didn't go with their theory. So they only moved forward with Wolf and Rentschler. And that was Brennan's point. Alessi completely misses the entire point and goes on and on and on and on about how the third one is Marie Russell, and that's what they're talking about. The judge has to correct him. He keeps going on and on about something that like literally doesn't even exist. And the judge like politely just lets him talk, instead of being like, I think you're confused, because I think she didn't want to embarrass him. But like, wow, what an embarrassing moment for him to just go on and on about something that like he clearly didn't listen to a word Brennan said. But I feel like he probably talked for another 7 hours after he left the courthouse. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the dude consistently talks in his sleep. Like, I kid you not. So we're going to play this because it's interesting to watch Hank Brennan take the timeline that they tried to provide to the court just now and completely destroy it. And then to boot, at the very end, after Alessi word salad some shit, some more that literally has nothing to do with anything, Brennan pops down the motion that they just filed on the 16th to the court. You are officers of the court. You filed the motion. Jackson, Yannetti, Alessi all signed it, saying that ARCCA was not paid, not hired or paid for by the defense, which is a lie. And that was just days ago, not last year, but days ago. They're sunk. Okay, so my opinion is that Alan Jackson's pro hoc vitae should be pulled, which would mean Little would have to go too, obviously. But I don't necessarily know what the judge is going to do. I think absolutely, in my opinion, that is the correct thing that should happen. I don't think a public talking to is going to change anything. I don't think a public talking to is an appropriate sanction for this. Her Sixth Amendment right to counsel of her choosing does not include allowing your counsel to be corrupt and lie to the court to win the case. You do not have that right. He is a guest in this state. Okay. So your Sixth Amendment right to counsel of your choosing does not also include counsel of your choosing who is not following the laws, the rules, and who is lying to the court. Absolutely not. And as not even practicing from that state, you are a guest. And Alessi a little bit tries to like take the heat off Yannetti by being like, well, he's not on the emails. He didn't know about it. Well, when you are, and now we are at 3, and he wants to put a 4th attorney on his license, pro hoc vitae, in Vetero, which I don't think the judge is going to allow, as I said before. But you have 3 asking for a 4th to be on pro hoc vitae on your license. As the practicing Massachusetts attorney, you have responsibilities. When you sign that paperwork, you sign saying that the lawyers that you're letting practice under your license are going to follow all the Massachusetts laws, procedures, rules, candor, like ethics, all of it. That's your responsibility. So you can't just say like, oh, I wasn't on the email chain, so I didn't know. No, that's why you sign that paper for pro hoc vitae. Like that's why it exists. So there is no absolving yourself of responsibility because Jackson wrote the email and you just had no idea they existed. That's your responsibility to know and for everybody to be on all of those for that very reason. Like it's your responsibility. Mr. Yannetti can't get out of it by saying I didn't know. That's not how it's going to work. And the court, to even suggest that was a stupid argument for Alessi. You're spitting in the face of the court by suggesting that, oh, well, you know, Yannetti's got 3 attorneys under his license for pro hoc vitae, but he just didn't know, so it's not Mr. Yannetti's fault. No, that's not how it works. Like, and like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know where this guy learned to practice law. And I don't care how good he usually is with environmental stuff. He's not very good at this. This is not environmental stuff. This is not his expertise, and he's not doing a good job. If I was Karen Read, I would fire him. No offense, but like I would. He's not a good attorney. Like he does not get to a valiant point. He can't get to his points quickly and thoroughly. He's losing anybody who's trying to listen to anything he's saying who doesn't know anything about law. They're completely lost. They heard nothing that he said. And the court, who does know what he said, is being insulted. You're insulting the judge's intelligence. You are telling the judge what she said, then giving definitions to the words that she said. I'm sorry. Who the hell ever on planet Earth would ever tell you that that's a good idea? And then to boot, you try to weasel your way out of the responsibilities of a sponsor of a pro hoc vitae attorney. Like, I don't know who taught him to lawyer, but it was like he needs to go back. We need to stop just allowing every lawyer to practice that passes the bar, because clearly some of them are not up to par. You might be able to pass a test, cool, that's great, and still have no idea what the fuck you're doing, as we just saw. So let's let Hank take it away. In the meantime, if you want to, because you love me and you love my show and I missed you guys, you can always donate to the channel. You know, I run only on donations from you guys. So if I don't get them, I make nothing. I think Venmo is down right now still. You can try it though. I haven't checked in about 20 minutes, so maybe they fixed it. There's Cash App and there's PayPal. It's on the screen. It's also in the description of the video. So if you are one of my catch it on a replay people, I will always read it on the next stream. If I didn't catch you on this because you're on replay and you send it to me, then I will read it on the next stream. I appreciate you guys so much. It helps. Unlike some people, I don't make $50K a month. like Aiden claims that he does. And so for mine, it goes to things like wiping my ass with toilet paper and food in my fridge. So I appreciate you and I love you all. And we're going to play this and watch Hank absolutely destroy the defense because it is freaking brilliant and freaking hilarious.
Attorney Alessi ended his argument talking about the Sixth Amendment and discounting repeated or repetitive violations. When you consider the conduct of this case, you should consider the history of the case, including repetitive violations, 3.6 violations, protective order violations, and then discovery violations, representation violations. The defense in the first trial attempted and successfully did portray ARCCA witnesses as wholly independent, presented themselves as oblivious to the nuances of ARCCA, left the impression that there was no compensation, no bias, no collaboration. They postured the information that they gave in advance of the second trial, and I'm going to get to the timing of that, but it ignores entirely withholding this information before the first trial. The defendant presumed innocent has a right to a fair trial, and so do the people of the Commonwealth. It is clear from a reading of the transcripts and the records and the posturing materials that there was information that showed that ARCCA was not wholly independent. It's information that was known to the defense, and for whatever reason, perhaps a strategic advantage was not provided to the Commonwealth, the court, nor the jury. Mr. Attorney Alessi talks about the Gonzalez case. In that case, there was one attorney to cross-examine a witness, which is protocol, another attorney passed a note, a minor violation of a court procedure. That is like a raindrop in a hurricane.
You said a raindrop in a hurricane.
We have a code of ethics and rules to ensure a fair
For a
trial
reason.
Everybody, both sides. Coming in at the last hour and providing information when the avalanche started is not enough. This isn't just about Rule 14. My effort with the ARCCA witnesses from the beginning, and I've been clear and consistent, is not to preclude them. It is to get fair discovery that we're entitled to. I did not know before a few weeks ago what the defense had known. I did not know that there was conversations and efforts made between them and then inevitably compensation paid. I didn't know that, but I certainly suspected it. I saw Your Honor's
We all did.
Before voir dire, during voir dire, after voir dire. I remember the conversations at the sideline. And those questions were right to the point. And when we were sidebar, I specifically mentioned, I don't know, a voir dire is inconsequential. I don't know what to ask. I can't send them back home to get their records or their emails or any billing. All of that was denounced. All of that was portrayed as baseless. But the court had questions. I had many of the same questions. It is not a surprise that we start to scratch off the tip of the iceberg. It is not complete. There is a murky relationship between the defense and the United States Attorney's Office relative to these ARCCA witnesses. And there is a very unclear relationship as we stand here right now between the history of interaction between the defense and these ARCCA witnesses. You can see from the emails, while there is some information provided, there are gaps. There are enormous gaps in time. The pause moment on March 24th and then reinitiating on May 5th, where ARCCA is actually billing the defense for their works before the voir dire. There had to have been communication between that time that rekindled this relationship. There are two requests that are mentioned in the emails. We didn't get all of those responses. And so we do not have an affidavit from either counsel or any of the counsels. We did not hear a word from any of them. According to Mr. Alessi, what you should do, what the court should do, is go to the federal government and ask
So
questions.
just to be clear, I am not having ex parte communications with anyone. about this case. So I'm totally rejecting your request that I do that, Mr. Williams.
It wasn't a request, Your Honor.
You suggested that I call.
No, I said if Your Honor wanted.
Which is a suggestion, jackass.
I'll move on, but the point is, it is not incumbent on the court to provide the proof that the defense was given the opportunity to bring in today to clarify the record. Instead, it is the typical 101, blame everybody but themselves. There's no acknowledgement. There's no contrition. And there's no confidence that we are going to get all the materials that we're entitled to. To suggest that ARCCA's position did not change, it did change. Their opinions did change by the time they reached trial. It is not that the defense brought out that there was an expert in lighting or crashes happen at night. It is the bias, the relationship that is critical, and that was hidden from the court, the Commonwealth, and the jury. It is the bias and the leaning towards one side that was not disclosed. The first trial, to disclose it last week or 10 days ago. So let me offer a quick history. It is true, when I first spoke to the court, I believed the documents provided by the federal government, and I did correct that record as soon as I learned before court ended for the day. January 30th, 2025, the United States Attorney's Office responded to one of my two requests. They provided billing, including ARCCA billing. There was billing for their reconstruction, but there was no billing provided for their preparation, voir dire preparation, travel expenses, trial testimony. That information was provided to both sides on January 30th, 2025. It seemed at that point that the federal government was being at least a little more responsive, although not correctly. No bills other than what the ARCCA experts did in putting together their demonstration and their accident reconstruction. February 11th, I filed on behalf of the Commonwealth our motion to exclude the ARCCA witnesses. On February 12th, the United States Attorney's Office gives us new emails. And those emails were between the defense and the United States Attorney's Office regarding their request to use ARCCA witnesses at trial. It's not a surprise that on February 13th, on the heels of these more productive disclosures by the federal government, we then received the disclosures from the defense, which are the emails regarding conversations between Attorney Jackson and Dr. Wolf, and the invoice for billing. Now, I did misspeak, I corrected it, but it is not the source of that information. It is the substance.
I was already saying this before this hearing. It's the info itself.
It is that information that should have been known to the court, the Commonwealth, and the jury at the first trial.
It was known to the defense.
That information, when you compare it to the representations that have been made prior to trial by the defense, that has import. Before, and I'm not going to belabor this and go through the comments, most of them again, but it is important before I get to the representations. The court does consider pro hoc vice. We have one licensed attorney in Massachusetts who's carrying 3 pro hoc vice attorneys with the request for a 4th to ride on that same license. There is a responsibility, respectfully, to Attorney Annette, fine attorney, an excellent attorney who I admire, but there's a responsibility so that there are not a number of pro hoc vice lawyers doing different things and then later plausible deniability. When we send emails, if I should miss one person on an email, I will receive an email telling me that make sure everybody gets every communication. I've been corrected or redirected many times when we've left somebody out on a communication. Pleadings are signed by all parties. They come through the bar card on that table. And so to try to parse or mince or put a slight on words to suggest that things are done independently and there's no responsibility for the defense when a representation is made that's inaccurate isn't enough. It doesn't assure that in the future it won't continue. Now, Mr. Alessi said there were rules of the road. This was before his time and mine, but I've read the discovery. There were no rules of the road. There was a protective order. And the protective order was clear that there was no discussion outside of court about the federal material. And there was nothing in the protective order or direction from the U.S. Attorney's Office that the Commonwealth had any right or privilege to contact any witnesses. Everything is done by the book, by regulation, through TUI requests.
So I have to say, I've never seen the protective order. I received a stack of discovery that the federal authorities were kind enough to get to me in advance of trial last time, because Mr. Jackson had told me he understood that I was operating from a place that I didn't have enough knowledge essentially of what was going on. So I received those 3,000 pages plus. I did not receive a protective order. I don't know that I'm entitled to it, but it would be helpful. I don't want to take it if I'm not entitled to it. I don't know what the parameters are.
Your Honor, we have a copy of the protective order. I did ask full counsel if there was any limitations to it, and I don't have a certain answer. What I'd like to do is
Call over
inquire.
there, please.
Yes.
All right, if I can have it, I'd like it. It would help guide me through this. If I can't have it, I'll just go with everything I've got.
May I have a moment to speak to counsel?
Sure.
No, let's try to be helpful. Why? Because it's a look that he's trying to get this all sorted out. A worried look on his face tells me otherwise.
We can call the United States Attorney's Office and get an answer.
All right, I appreciate that. Sorry to interrupt.
And so the portrayal that there was a rules of the road, there was no such rules of the road.
It's like 3,078 pages.
Neither Attorney
I think
Lally
it
or
was.
Laughlin ever
Exactly.
contacted any witnesses directly because they understood that that was precluded. And so there was not an opportunity to call or discuss or have conversations, share direct examinations, or have emails with these witnesses. In fact, it's underscored, isn't it, by the emails that we received where Dr. Wolf replies at the 24 saying U.S. Attorney's Office essentially told them to hold off on communications. It doesn't seem like it would be a very clear rule of the road to have independent conversation with these witnesses and then be cautioned that that no longer was viable. And so inevitably, it was the understanding that nobody would be speaking to the witnesses. And I did see in the transcript, and the board here was asked, were you available to the Commonwealth? And the witness said yes. I don't know any basis whatsoever for the witness to suggest that there was any invitation to speak to them. And so what we have is we have witnesses that were wholly portrayed as independent.
And they were not.
When we look at the testimony, it was represented many times in court, leaving the impression that the defense had no access and no special relationship with the ARCCA witnesses. On June 5th, 2024, day 26 of trial.
What date?
Day 26
You
of
know
trial.
that, but what date?
June 5th, 2024, discussing scheduling and voir dire hearings. The defense said, I provided everything we have. I can't make up discovery. I mean, I got a report. And everybody in this group knows why I can't provide additional discovery for ARCCA. Everybody knows they've got what I've got. Your Honor asked, I haven't. If you can't, that's fine. So not everybody knows and I make those decisions. Response, certainly. You're the one who needs to know, and I thought you knew. The federal authorities will not allow me to interview or ask for additional information from anybody in their world. So I have nothing. I've got a report. He's got the report. That's it. I'm going to start asking questions on the report. That's it. He can cross the report. So as many times as he says, I don't know what they're going to testify to. Yes, you do, because they're going to testify to the contents of the report. And those are definitely questions I'm going to ask, so I've got clean hands.
All right,
You don't got clean hands.
From a transcript, as you know, there are dozens of transcripts. What's the volume number? What's the volume number and the page number?
Day 26 of trial, page 248 to 250. I will get a volume number from the court.
That's okay.
this seems to directly contradict the theory that Attorney Alessi has been promoting today of the rules of the road. This does not suggest that ARCCA is open for business and private discussion and consultation and payment. It says the opposite. It says the opposite. The federal authorities will not allow me to interview or ask for additional information from anybody in their world, so I have nothing. And so this presentation today by Attorney Alessi, suggesting somehow that this was open and notorious, is not backed up by the defense attorneys themselves. The June 10th hearing, we've already been through it. I won't repeat it, but those comments are important. I think what stands out about the prior hearings, and I say that I think that there's a murky relationship that we have not done more than scratch the surface of, is Your Honor may remember that the defense noticed 3 experts, including Mr. Klein. And when we get to June 10th, Your Honor is asking, regarding the 3 experts from ARCCA, this is June 10, 2024, trial transcript 28.
Hold on one second. Let me click that.
I believe it's page 12.
Okay.
And you were asking about the 3 experts from ARCCA. And you mentioned, notably, I can't tell who does what or what the basis of the opinion is. And when you look at the ARCCA report, there's no delineation on which of the 3 experts did what in that report. You can't tell what role each of them played from the report. And so if we only had the report, we wouldn't know which of those experts to call. And so when you continue questioning, you were told, well, you said, so I'm to believe that the defense is calling 3 witnesses that you've never spoken to and putting them on the stand. And Mr. Yannetti said, that's essentially it. He gives some detail. As mentioned earlier, we've spoken to them only for purposes of coordinating their testimony and background. The important point for this particular point is that the defense inevitably calls 2 witnesses, Mr. Wolf and Mr. Rentschler. And when they only call Mr. Wolf and Mr. Rentschler, there must be a reason why.
Bingo.
Because you can't tell from a report who did what. They know
Right.
there's 3 experts. So there must be conversations with somebody explaining the witness's role or why only 2 of those 3 witnesses are important for the defense.
Right.
And so it is clear from the absence of information, there are much more communications that are expected to be
Yeah, they did.
in existence that are not
Exactly.
been provided.
And how, if there's no communications? That's Brendan's point. That's Brendan's point. Brendan's point is,
On June
how would they
18th,
know
2024,
and who not to?
the voir dire hearing. The court asks, well, I thought that you would help.
I've got the transcript. What page are you on? Do you know?
No, but I can.
If it's just your notes, that's okay.
I can pull that up.
Karen doesn't look happy there. Come on, Judge. I've never seen a judge have to stop every 10 seconds to follow along. Usually they listen and then they write down like what it is and then they go back and look at it in chambers.
Page 4, line 11, the court asks, so the understanding of the voir dire is that this is for the Commonwealth's motion to exclude this testimony. All right, that's what we're here for, the Rule 14 violation.
Big busted.
And Mr. Jackson says, is that the same with Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler? And the court says, well, I thought that would help both of you. The Commonwealth has nothing on that, and you say you haven't been able to even talk to them at all about this case. And the answer is that's correct. Now, refraining from my opinion and characterizations, unlike the defense, I think that the transcript speaks for itself. I'll let it speak for itself. When we continue in the voir dire hearing, page 71.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
Line 4, importantly, were you hired by the defense in this case? No, sir. Before this morning, when you walked into court, had you and I ever met face to face? No, sir. Now, this illustrates an important point. That is technically true. But what impression is that making to the court and to the Commonwealth? Is that a genuine impression consistent with reality?
No. Yes,
Line
exactly.
20, the person to
Or
my
games.
left, the female to my left sitting here, have you ever seen her before? Nope. Do you know who she is? Yes. And so there is direct and indirect commentary, questions, presentations that reinforce that the defense and ARCCA are wholly independent from each other. This is also consistent with the representations regarding payment. There are questions voir dire and at trial about whether or not the witnesses were ever paid. It may be technically true they were not paid at the time they were asked the questions, but if there is an expectation of payment, it is a promise,
reward, or inducement.
It can show bias. There's nothing wrong with paying an expert. There's nothing wrong with going over a direct examination with an expert. There is nothing wrong with talking about
when you do it properly.
With an expert. But when these experts are being portrayed a certain way, that they're independent, that there is no evidence, information about them, then it is not a fair representation. It is not an honest representation. Now, it wasn't until Your Honor asked today that we even knew that the defense paid this bill. When you look at the bill, there's some things that stand out. There's a tax ID number, an invoice dated July 12, 2024, addressed to.
Hold on 1 second, please. Okay.
It's addressed to Attorney Jackson. And the position that the defense takes, Attorney Alessi takes today, this came out of the blue that they had to pay. Apparently, everybody in the know knew the defense was paying for this expert other than the defense. ARCCA experts knew. Dr. Wolf knew. Dr. Rentschler apparently knew. The federal government knew. When you look at the bill, there are things that stand out that are so notable that you can't go back and try to twist them or change them. Look at the first entry of May 1st, 2024. That is before June 10th. That is before the representations that there was no intention of compensation. Apparently, the witnesses they were going to call expected that they were going to be paid by the defense, and they wouldn't have been keeping track of their time back on May 1st, 2024, participating in a telephone call with Alan Jackson. And so the March 20th email asking for an engagement letter and a retainer, and then the 24th saying we need to take a step back because of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
22nd.
I'm sorry, 22nd and 24th. There is obviously more communications because the relationship re-engages at least on or before May 1st, 2024, and these witnesses understand that they're going to be paid by the defense. And as I mentioned in the materials we got from the United States Attorney's Office on February 12th, there is no billing related to prep for volunteer travel trial. Nothing.
Exactly.
So
Month.
the only people who were surprised that they were paying the witnesses apparently was the defense themselves.
Yeah, come on.
And then before that June 10th hearing, where the representations were made, there's a June 9, 2024 phone call. Another participated in telephone call with Allen. And then we see before the voir dire testimony, there is billing to the defense, which is now we know paid by the defense, prepared for voir dire testimony, June 17, 2024. What we don't know is, in the preparation, was there any conversation with the defense? Was there any emails?
Obviously.
Were there any documents? Were there any outlines? Was there any discussion about the potential testimony, or was this solely the preparation of Dr. Rentschler on his own? On the same date, 3 hours billed by Dr. Wolf.
Yeah, no way.
Testimony and hearing. Now, they felt inclined and comfortable billing the defense for it. Was there any interaction or discussion between the parties? We don't know. This was the time.
Of course there was. They wouldn't be billing for it.
In their product, their receipts, the
Common
emails,
sense.
to elucidate, illustrate, demonstrate, prove what the relationship was. We don't have anything. We have nothing more than we did last week. On June 18, 2024, a round trip to Norfolk Superior Court by Dr. Rentschler, and also separately for his testimony, 8 hours billed, 12 hours for Dr. Wolf billed to the defense. June 21st, Dr. Rentschler prepares for his trial testimony, bills the defense, 5 hours. Again, we have no idea if that includes in any way correspondence, communication, interaction with the defense. June 21st, Dr. Wolf, the same, prepares for trial, 6 hours. June 23rd, Dr. Wolf travels to Boston for trial, significant delays, and then Dr. Rentschler on the 24th, round trip, Norfolk Superior Court, 11 hours, 6.5 hours respectively, billed to the defense. Now, it's hard to believe these witnesses would put forward money and expenses and travel without some understanding that they were going to get paid. It is hard to believe this company, especially after receiving an email about engagement and retainer, especially after having conversations, collaborating on their potential testimony, it is hard to believe that they would come to Boston, spend their time and their own money to do this, to just simply send a bill later with no expectation of being paid. And in fact, it's a very specific accounting of their time. And when one accounts for their time, it's because they need to have a contemporaneous record so they can get paid for that time. Also billing for wait time and travel, testimony at trial on June 24th, and then there's expenses for June 18th and June 24th. Specific
Testimony.
expenses, $1,749, $1,932. So they are keeping very careful track of the bill that they send within 1 month of the defense that gets paid that Commonwealth and the court never knows about. Talking about correcting a record.
Ouch.
And so this $23,925, we find out today, it was paid by the defense. We hear that there was a conversation with the federal government. We have no affidavit, we have no witness. We have no writing, no email, no correspondence, nothing to support or put in context the conversation, nothing. Nothing. And so when you look at the story on this bill and the timing of it and the details of it, we know that we are getting a fraction of the story, a fraction. It's not enough to blame the court, blame the Commonwealth, blame the U.S. Attorney's Office. There's some accountability.
None.
In addition, when we look at the totality, the representations made in court, we also, at some point, we're going to address the Commonwealth's position of violations of 3.6, not promotion. It's interesting that after the last court hearing, well-known reporter, very reputable reporter, Christine Rex, asks Mr. Jackson about paying the bill. And what I suggest more 3.6
What do you say?
activity, quote, no, of course not.
Oh, he said, of
That was
course
the
not.
position last week.
Haha.
Hear from defense counsel.
I
Your
was
Honor,
buffering.
Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I am going to be responding on behalf of defense counsel.
Okay.
to all
I'm only
of
going to
your
play a minute of
concerns.
this just because it's
I have
funny as hell.
A notebook that I've given,
Oh, it went back
albeit
to the
just now, to
beginning? Hold
Mr.
on.
Brennan. It's
Why?
got
Why did it
exhibits,
do
but it's
that?
everything
I paused
that
it and it went
everybody's
back.
already had. It's similar to what you're doing,
Okay, hold on.
transcripts, documents, probative issues.
Sorry. But Hank is around here somewhere.
Within 1 month of the defense, they get paid at
Okay. Boop.
and actually particularly note number 4, and both publicly, repetitively, but also at trial, the parameters of that were extended substantially. There is a summary again at the end of that report, substantially says the same thing. If you look at the last page, which is signed by all 3 of the experts, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Renshaw, and Mr. Klein.
Klein. That's the other one.
Says
Klein.
essentially the same thing.
Mr. Burns.
So we'd be oblivious if we stood here and said that the relationship between the defense and the experts, there was no relevance to bias or motive or desire to please, because clearly there is a change, there's an expectation of payment, there's communication, and to suggest that an outline was provided so close to the testimony, therefore it shouldn't have been shared. It isn't just what's in that outline. It's the fact that they have the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney Jackson may have brought out that accidents happen often at night. It's not the point. The point that the ARCCA witness is willing to forego that information as a benefit to the defense. That is the heart of what is missing and what is hidden.
Yep.
And so there are a number of instances, 3 of them, in the outline where the ARCCA clearly is trying to accommodate the defense. And by representing to the court that there is no relationship, the hands are clean, they have no information, is not only not accurate, it is misleading and unfair. So we know there is more. The question is, will we get it before trial? I have another TUI letter going out this week. I don't know how long it will take to respond to it, and the TUI letter is not going to be thorough and complete. It's just not the way TUI works. And so we are in the same spot. Well, actually, we're in a better spot. We know now about the relationship. We know about the potential bias. We know about the payments, but we don't know the full scope of it.
Right.
And so we are entitled to that information.
You are.
We don't know what conversations and communications the defense had with the ARCCA experts that the federal government doesn't know about.
Bingo.
Over the next few weeks, we're going to attempt to get more information, but we will never have an
All of it.
accurate accounting.
Nope.
Unless it's compelled.
Compel it, Your Honor. I compel you!
Your Honor has mentioned the sidebar,
Which one?
the most recent one.
Okay.
I am not trying to be overly critical of another attorney. I'm not. You can laugh, but I'm not.
They laughed. The defense laughed. People didn't catch that either.
It has been my effort to get.
He's doing his job.
Material. It has been my effort not to exclude ARCCA witnesses. It has been my effort to try to achieve fair play. There's been no other way to compel any information other than to file motions in this case. And it is not incumbent on the government to fight for this information.
Nope.
We're entitled to it.
Yep.
We're entitled to it. And at this point, we have no confidence whatsoever, none, that we're going to receive the information that we deserve.
Exactly. Required. They're entitled to it.
All right, thank you.
Entitled to that information.
If you have something.
Yes, thank you.
He said very briefly. He wasn't brief, but I'm just gonna play like the first like 2 minutes of this because it's so funny because he literally has no idea what he's talking about. Watch the facial expressions of some of the defense counsel when he's talking when they show them.
Attorney Brennan focused a lot
Especially when he
on
says they're not
invoice.
biased, when they're biased, when he says they're
As
biased.
I said, I work with experts all the time. The experts keep track of time. They had historically been paid by the government. There's another completely rational, more probable explanation.
Probable. He doesn't know. He's just throwing it out
They were being paid
there.
by the government. They were being paid by the government. They maybe at a certain point didn't know who was going to pay their bills.
They had a contract with the government, you
It
idiot.
turned out they were
He knows
providing testimony. That is a whole different issue, what they expected to be paid and by whom from what the defense expected. So two things can be true. It can be at some point they thought they were going to get paid, but up to that point they were being paid by the government. And the entries, all that Mr. Brennan went through, particularly the early ones, there is zero evidence before the court on any basis that they expected on those dates of those entries that they were going to be paid by the defense. And it's very important because Attorney Brennan spent most of his time on that invoice. With regard to the comment he made, and this is the problem when we don't have.
Here's where he
those
goes off
highlighted in
on a
notebooks where
tangent that
everybody can
makes
see it. We don't have
no
some of the
sense.
things that Mr. Brennan was referring to, but he referred to, of all things, Mr.
all
Jackson's
things.
response to a reporter.
He tries to make it sound like
about communications to the court.
he says something else.
But to be clear, the reporter asked, "Did you pay for testimony?"
That's not what she asked. Now watch
Did
them
you
look at
pay
her.
for testimony, Mr. Jackson?
Because that's not what she
No,
asked.
I paid for their time.
She did not ask
Did he say I
that.
paid
She
for
said,
their
did you
time?
pay
Pardon me?
ARCCA?
Did he say I paid for their time?
Mr. Jackson?
I said the words, "Of course not." Did you pay these witnesses for their testimony? And I said,
She didn't
"Of course
pay
not."
for their
If the
testimony.
court asked me that question today, I would respond exactly the same way.
All right, so you just told that I paid for their time. That
No,
was-
That's not what was
That,
said.
that was not said, but I'm saying there's always some inference about what he said, that what was said, but that was his response, that was.
Caught,
it was-
red-handed.
The premise of Attorney Brennan was, what Mr. Jackson said to the reporter was different from what you've heard in court today, and it wasn't.
It is.
It's
He said no.
important to be accurate. The other things, and I'm gonna go through.
It's a line item
through,
on the invoice. Testimony.
is it kept stating that there had to be a belief that they were going to be paid by the defense. There is no evidence whatsoever for that because it didn't exist. So now with regard quickly again to
Bingo.
the other topics. Attorney Brennan talked about 3 witnesses, right? And he said he was,
Here he goes.
is clearly inferring 3 ARCCA.
Here he
Your
goes.
Honor can go back to the transcript. It was Dr. Russell.
He has no
was
idea what he's
inferring.
talking about right here.
This is
None.
the ARCCA people. I
Yep.
go back to the transcript.
You can go back to the transcript. Earlier on, there was a discussion, way early
Who
on.
is Mr. Klein?
He was a third
He's an ARCCA expert. The third ARCCA.
that was involved for the government, right?
That's
And
what
then
he meant.
stopped, and we didn't retain him for testimony.
Alessi.
Let me be clear on what I mean by retain. He didn't testify.
It's been a long.
I
day.
understand. I'm trying to answer your question, Your Honor.
I know, and I realize that you just said something that you want to explain. Go ahead and explain.
Right, so what I'm saying is, in terms of, I'm gonna take back the retain. The point is, there
Oh,
were
doesn't like that
originally 3 ARCCA persons on the report that we got from the government, right? Rentschler, Wolf, and
Klein.
Klein. We only went forward with the testimony of Rentschler, and Wolf.
I know.
And that's what I want to
And
come
why?
to, Your Honor.
That's the point. Why?
The whole emphasis was that the
emphasis is
Commonwealth
why.
had no notice that we were going to use these experts. Your
Brennan
Honor,
never
the
said that.
voir
No
dire-
notice.
The
He never said
voir
that.
dire was the notice. And my point was, I
Never.
didn't say that there was no bias. What I said
Look at
was,
the defense.
once you decide you're
Watch
going
them.
to use an expert, right? You're going to be
Look at
having them
Karen.
testify. Anybody could claim that that testimony
Vignetti.
is biased. But the point is, Your Honor, that the allegation that somehow mysteriously this third person that was being
Face.
discussed, and clearly
Goes.
the inference was that we were misrepresenting still about which ARCCA witnesses because we weren't talking about the third. The third was Dr. Russell, and you'll see that in the transcript.
It wasn't.
Okay,
She's
but
not an
when I
ARCCA
said-
expert.
You expect something, whatever I said, you expect me to believe that you are calling 3 witnesses whom
She
you've
meant
never
ARCCA.
spoken to. When I had that discussion with Mr. Unity, that's what I meant.
Thank you for bringing that up, Your Honor.
Oh my God.
And that was
This
just
is what we were talking about the entire time.
That was nothing to do with Dr. Russell. But here's the important part.
Yep. He says it twice.
Attorney Brennan didn't read the rest of it. You're to believe.
Look at him. He's
Okay, so when are we? Are we the June 10th?
Yes, please, Your Honor. June 10th. That's exactly right.
He just went on and on and on right there. Okay. I'm going to play the rest of it, but like he just went on and on and on about how ARCCA, the third witness, it's Marie Russell. And the inference was that they didn't get notice. I'm sorry. Did anybody hear Brennan say that? That is literally not what he said. What he said was, why did you dump the third ARCCA witness? You had to have known who did what in order to know whose testimony you needed and whose you didn't want. Nothing about notice. Had nothing to do with notice. I didn't say shit about notice. So literally, this dude goes on and on and on about the 3 ARCCA. It's one of them is Marie Russell, and the judge is like, when I say like you expect me to believe you're bringing 3 witnesses in that you've never spoken to, she meant the 3 ARCCA people. That's what she meant, literally. And so then, of course. This idiot goes, well, thank you for bringing that up. It's literally what we've been talking about this entire time. You just said it when you started this. Like, bro, he doesn't even remember what he said 10 seconds prior. Then he says, and it's a different channel. It's not court TV, but a different channel. I don't know if there's more than one camera in the court. There must have been, because there's another angle where Alessi says, I'm not going to say they're not biased, Your Honor. And then Karen and Yannetti, you can see their faces, and Karen goes and opens her eyes wide, like, is he fucking insane? Why would he say that? And Yannetti, like, you can see it all over his face, like, oh, what a fucking idiot. Like, you literally just admitted to the court that ARCCA is biased. That's like, are you an idiot? Dr. Russell's the dog bite lady, the hack, the lady who's not an expert in dog bites in any way, shape, or form, and has 0 training on dog bites. She just saw a lot of dog bites as an ER doctor, so now it makes her an expert. If that was the case, dude, if that was literally the case, I would be an expert of law. Just saying. I would literally be an expert of law. If the case was that you have studied something for so long it makes you an expert, then I would be an expert of law. 26 years, that would make me an expert of law. Like, what? First of all, I say let Dr. Russell, let her testify. She sunk the defense last time. She shall sink them again because she's a hack and she can't answer basic questions about how she got to the conclusion she got to. So it's like, let her testify. Let her, please. Even in my opinion, I said let ARCCA testify too, because they look stupid as experts. And this is what happened when even the jury thought this. You look dumb as experts, where you're supposed to be an expert in text stream data, saying we didn't have the text stream data. We didn't know it was nighttime. We didn't know it was cold out. We didn't know what the temperature was. We didn't know the wind chill. We didn't know all that, but none of our interpretations would change even if we knew all that. No expert in physics or science would say if we had more information, it might not change the result of what they came to the conclusion of. That would be a complete lie. And that's what they got on the stand and said. So of course, normal people went, well, then you can't be credible. Like, She shouldn't have allowed Richard Green or Russell in the first trial. And I had this criticism of her back then. In the first trial, they shouldn't have been allowed. Never mind the second. I don't think they should be allowed in this trial either. But in my opinion, they do more damage to the defense than they help. So I say let them. At this point, let them, because the judge is letting them anyway. So like, let them, whatever. Like, they do more damage to the defense anyway. But I've never, if this was any other judge, Dr. Russell would not have been let in, not in the first trial, not in the second trial. Like, oh yeah, they'll bring her back. Her and her facial expression, she looks like a pug dog. That's what she does. She gets pissed off at the Commonwealth and just goes. Exactly. Bingo. I'm gonna play the rest of this because it's so funny, because like, he's literally talking about nothing. He didn't listen to anything Brennan said, and he's literally making a point, like trying to like defend a point that Brennan didn't even make. It didn't exist. It didn't like. So it's funny to me, running around in circles. He turns his head sideways, and you can see that little giant rotary bald patch in the middle of his head. And I just want to put like a yarmulke over it.
Exactly right. It was June 10th. It's important. He stopped when he made
12.
Yes, thank you. So on June 10th, so you're to believe, this is line 19. So I'm to believe that the defense is calling 3 witnesses that you've never spoken to and putting them on the stand here. Here's the response, and it's total. That's essentially it. We've spoken to them. So it's not like it wasn't disclosed.
We've spoken to them only for.
We've spoken to them only for the purposes of coordination of their testimony and their background.
Exactly.
We've not been able to interview them regarding their findings.
We have not been able to interview them.
Reports. Your Honor, that's 100% true, because I read that.
No, you interviewed them.
But Mr. Brennan just mischaracterized it again, because that's 100% true. He made it seem like that was an untruthful statement, and I know
was
Your
untruthful.
Honor gets it.
Oh yeah, she gets there, right.
Last 2 points, Your Honor. Attorney Brennan talked about that the ARCCA experts improved their testimony.
They did.
My point, Your Honor, was their opinions never changed.
Yeah,
Whether they improved is a characterization, but their opinions did not change.
Oh boy.
And that is very important.
You're going with
and
that?
last
Yeah.
point, Your Honor, goes to the discussion that Your Honor was having with the questioning of Ms. Little, Mr. Jackson. I want to be very clear on February 6th, and this is going to be my very last point. When Your Honor asked the questions on February 6th, and Mr. Jackson responded about the discovery, and I said to you that Ms. Little was the one handling the discovery. And I spoke with Ms. Little, and I spoke
with her. He says this like 5 times. I spoke with her on the break.
Available for any questions that follow up on this. I asked Ms. Little during the break. She wasn't here for that February 6th. She obviously didn't hear the sidebar. But I said, when you learned of what the Judge Brennan was asking about, I said, in your head, what was going on, and what came to your head? Because I said Mr. Jackson didn't make any note of this statement because he had no recollection of any of those March emails. So I asked Ms. Little, who would, between the two of them, would, if there was any recollection. So during the break,
I don't remember anything.
I said, Ms. Little, when you heard, it got the order, because that's the first she knew of the inquiry. I said, when you got that and you saw that you had to turn over discovery, when you read that, did it come to your mind? Did it come to your mind that there are these March emails? And she said, no. I didn't recall them. I didn't remember their existence. And what I did was I knew we had to turn over discovery. I then went back. I rediscovered those emails, and that's how I had recalled it. That is important, Your Honor, because there has to be a knowing misstatement of fact for 3.38. So not only did Mr. Jackson not know at the time Mr. Jackson made those statements and recalled those emails, neither did Ms. Little, who was the keeper of all the discovery. And that is my last point, and I will conclude this way, Your Honor. Attorney Brennan conflated Rule 14 issues with the 3.3A1 issues. They are completely separate. I am not here today, Your Honor, to take the position that the defense is in perfect compliance.
Now watch
with Rule
the
14.
defense table.
We're not. But that's a whole different question. A whole different question from whether the attorneys are in compliance with 3.3A. And I would urge Your Honor, as I know you will, to keep those distinctions as we go through the matter, because conflating them is not proper for the analysis. And my last is a citation of law, Your Honor, which said that Gonzalez.
Which case that has nothing to do with
involved a very minor issue. Attorney Brennan is correct. There was a minor issue in Gonzalez, but the Supreme Court went through those things that could rise to it. And I'm going to give you another cite, Your Honor, which is United States versus Diazzi. It involved a lot of serious issues with regard to conduct of counsel. They were not pro hoc vice, but it's 807 Fed 2nd 12 First Circuit 1986, where Your Honor can read it as to what were happening. The attorney's conduct was deplorable.
Like yours?
And yet the court held that you could not disqualify them because of the Sixth Amendment. And my last point, Your Honor, is when you do a Sixth Amendment analysis,
and it's not pro hoc vice.
Whether or not the attorney at issue is pro hoc vice or not, is not weighty in the determination of balancing the Sixth Amendment. It is not. In the abstract, Your Honor, in civil cases, is it easier to knock out a pro hoc vice? That would be absolutely correct. But when it comes to a criminal case where a defendant, their choice of counsel, that is a much different analysis with the Sixth Amendment.
They don't get to keep corrupt counsel that lies.
Said to be brief, I wanted
That's not a right.
More I would have to say, but those are the highlights for the moment.
Anything, Mr. Brennan?
Very briefly.
And here's where Hank puts the nail in, y'all.
My arguments to the court have always been focused on Rule 14.
Hi, Parson.
The verbal gymnastics that counsel engages in to use words like misrepresentation to distort reality is extraordinary.
It is amazing.
Let's use the defense words themselves. If you look at docket 505, which was signed in a pleading.
That was filed late, right? The
February
first Saturday or something.
February 16,
Him and
2025.
Rogaine and something that'll make him
Sums it up,
shut the
really.
fuck up.
And this is signed by Attorney Jackson, Attorney Alessi, Attorney Minetti, certificate of service by Attorney Little.
Was it signed by Ms. Little? It's not.
Ms.
right?
Little has only done the
Maybe
certificate of
authored
service.
by- Okay.
She did not sign it. It was signed by Attorney Jackson, Alessi, and Minetti. And this is the defendant Karen Read opposition to Commonwealth's motion to exclude employees of ARCCA LLC. And here's the representation they made. Not my words, not a misstatement, not a distortion. This is their words. Now comes the defendant Karen Read, Ms. Read, and respectfully request that this honorable court deny the Commonwealth's motion to exclude the expert testimony of employees of ARCCA LLC, namely Daniel Wolf, PhD, and Andrew Rentler, PhD. Here's the important part. The Commonwealth's motion to exclude these exculpatory expert witnesses who were not hired or paid for by the defense is not made in good faith and is a desperate and transparent attempt to keep exculpatory testimony of neutral expert witnesses from the jury
expert witness
in this case. I know Attorney Alessi no longer likes the word retain. That retain word I was in for is the reason he said it. Their words, their motion. This is no different than the tone of representations made February, last June, May, and before. Thank you.
All right.
Right.
So we're back here next week. I believe we're back here Tuesday, Wednesday, and perhaps Friday. Is that accurate?
So Hank just drops an absolute hammer on them and is like, oh yeah, you want to keep playing verbal word games? Cool. We're going to read your motion. You filed T-minus just a few days ago on the 16th that literally says We did not pay or hire the ARCCA experts, and basically Commonwealth's just trying to keep them up for no reason whatsoever so that the jury doesn't hear from these neutral experts. What? A few days ago. Now, mind you, Mr. Alessi has said twice in this whole entire hearing that he's not going to say that ARCCA isn't biased. That is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard a lawyer say who wants to keep their experts in. I'm not going to say that they're not biased. Wow, what? Like, what? Like, I told you guys before this started with Hank, like, to watch him, that he is extremely intelligent, he's prepared, and he will slice and dissect any lies that come through. And I know in the beginning you guys didn't get a ton of time to watch him sort of do his full thing, but I'm hoping these longer hearings sort of give you guys an idea of like why I said he was so awesome. Like, because he knows what he's doing. Like, he's not going to play fuck games with the defense, lying and mischaracterizing and trying to play word games. Like, I also want to read real quick. I got a donation on PayPal, and I know they said I didn't have to read it out loud, but I always do. I'm not going to read your name out loud because I don't do that. But I am going to read it. Probably not like verbatim, but basically it just says that I don't have to thank them on air, which I always do. And there's a reason I do it. I do it because I feel like I want you guys to know that I appreciate it. That whether it's 50 cents or 25 cents or 1 cent or $25 or $50, it doesn't matter what it is to me. It's the meaning behind it. I appreciate it more than probably most of you will ever know. And the whole reason of me reading it is as an acknowledgement of my appreciation. So that's why I do it. But he makes a funny joke at the bottom of this that I think we could probably talk about. Says, I appreciate what you're doing. And I'd love to say over like bills, you know, or I'd send you more. Listen, I hear you. I hear you. Maybe we can hold a raffle for dinner or court seat. Just LOL, just a joke. Yeah, that I did report that to the court as well. You can't raffle off a public court seat. So I love how Free Karen Read thought that was like some really smart idea and we know that all gets okayed through Karen. So that's like not like judge is not going to appreciate her trying to raffle off a public court seat that belongs to the public in Bev's courtroom. She is not going to appreciate that. But thank you. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate you. If anybody else wants to donate, you know how to do it. It's PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. Information's on the screen and in the description. I appreciate you guys always when you do so. I am shocked there's not a coin. I do think, Jen, that Bev has to do something. She has to in this case, because if not, she is inviting other attorneys to come into her courtroom, act this way, and get away with it because they're just going to think she's a pushover. It's her reputation at stake right now. So she knows that she can't do nothing. I don't think she'll do nothing. I have no doubt she will do something. I think the appropriate sanction is to pull his pro hoc BJ. That's my opinion. We'll see what she chooses to do. But I do know that when we get to the motion that Hank was supposed to talk about that he didn't have time because Alessi ran out the clock talking about literally nothing, that he will talk about how the federal investigation is closed. I confirmed it last year and told people here. Obviously, I told a couple people privately before I said anything here. Nobody wanted to listen. And when the calls came in a few days ago, I got numerous phone calls about that phone call. I even know the contents of some of what was said that I can't tell you, but multiple institutions got that phone call. So no matter how much Aiden wants to pretend it's not real and he can't see it, it's over. It's been over for a year. They found no corruption. They found no collusion. They found text messages from Proctor that they didn't love. And that's it. So unfortunately for him tweeting that it's not over is not going to age well for him at all. Not even a little bit. Like, and yes, you're right. That's another thing. Civil cases are not citations or case law for criminal, so I don't even know why he attempted to bring up anything that has to do with civil anything. That was ridiculous. I know, right? They should all just be stuck on an island together. I did talk about this, Jen. I don't think that Judge will let better in. I talked about it earlier in the show because you have a duty to your client. And there's a reason why you can't hire an attorney if you're getting a divorce and then your ex-husband go and hire that same attorney, because there's competing interests and the attorney can't decide which one of you is more important. You can't give more weight to one than the other. And these Stuart Turtle's cases and Karen's cases, even though they're not co-defendants, they mince in a way. And so they're mixed. And so he wouldn't be able to decide who's more important, because you can't do that as an attorney. You have a duty to your client. So I just don't see her letting him in without some sort of ironclad order of, if any of this gets leaked or used in his trial, you're going to like lose your law license. Like, I don't see anything like that. And I just don't see how she could let him in. Honestly, it just wouldn't make any logical sense. Yeah, he is brilliant. He's brilliant. The man is brilliant. Everything's always under advisement. It drives me nuts because back in the day, I'm talking 10 or more years ago, judges almost never took things under advisement. And if they did, it happened for like a day or two or three, and you get what would happen. The under advisement happens in like certain scenarios anyway. But I mean, like in criminal cases where like things need to be decided quickly, normally it's not, everything doesn't get taken under advisement. At least this is how they did it. The court did it like 10 years ago. Nowadays, the judges are always, I'm going to take it under advisement, and then wait weeks, sometimes months before you get an answer. I liked the way they used to do it, which was you weigh the merits of the arguments right there. They're making the arguments. It's in front of you. What are you going to do? That's the job of a judge, to weigh the arguments. Like, so, I mean, in my opinion, all this under advisement crap drives me absolutely bonkers, because I feel like the judge does too much of the under advisement. Like, it'd be so funny. Let them pump and dump. Yeah, that's probably what they would do. Yeah. They're really not. You could add 5 more attorneys. You're still not going to be a match for Hank Brennan. Karen can add 25 attorneys. They're not Hank Brennan. Like, well, that's the thing. He screams, he yells, right? Then he tries to like throw like compliments at the judge. Like, dude, brown nosing isn't going to help you. I promise you that. Like, it's just not. Like, the judge is no idiot, and you're insulting her intelligence and her ability to make decisions without a compliment thrown at her way. She's not a moron. And I love when he says things like, and I know your honor will, as in like implying that the judge will do what you want the judge to do. Like, that is very condescending. I don't know who taught this man like how to be in a courtroom or what to say or what not to say, but somebody missed the lawyering 101 class. Legitimately. I do. Yeah, they definitely won't be able to call ARCCA independent. That's 1,000%. There's no chance in hell they're going to be allowed to call them independent. It's just not going to happen. That's the thing. It took Hank a quarter of the time to destroy all of their lies, give a timeline of times and dates and things that happened during those times and dates for reasons why they would have had to have known. Why they can't just claim ignorance of, oh, we didn't know. You didn't know 6 times over. You didn't look for that discovery. This time you were supposed to give it. This time you're supposed to give it. This time you just forgot it all. You forgot you paid that bill too for the last however many months. You forgot all about it. Even when the reporter asked you the other day if you paid for ARCCA and you said, of course not. When you filed that motion just days ago and said that you didn't pay or hire, not hire, pay or hire ARCCA, and that they are neutral. Ouch. The defense took a beating. It's simple. The defense took a very severe beating in that hearing. Like, sorry, not sorry. Like, that's what happened. Like, took a very severe beating in that hearing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, that was bad. That was so bad for them. Alessi did them no favors. None whatsoever. As a matter of fact, he shot himself in the foot numerous times. I don't know how, if you're Karen Read, you keep him on your defense team, unless you just want to, like, not fire him because, you know, the optics would be bad, because then those optics would say, like, you fired him because he is bad. You know, his expertise is in environmental law. Environmental is his expertise. Like, this ain't the environment, Bob. Maybe go ask Mother Nature to make that hair grow over that rotary. I don't know. Like, well, that's the thing. And this is what Brennan pointed out, which is this isn't the first misrepresentation or lie that the defense has made to the court. One of the very big ones was way back when the defense got up and said, oh, the federal government says that they cannot let this go to trial. And the federal government had to make a statement to the media that very day and say, that is not true. We did not say that. Is that a lie or misrepresentation to the court? I think it is. That's a big one. The amount of little lies and misrepresentations they've made to the court. Did they tell the judge that when they held up those pictures on those chalks of John O'Keefe's arm, did they tell the judge that they darkened the wounds? Did they tell the judge that they altered those pictures? They took the lividity out and they darkened his scratches, lacerations, to make them look like they were deeper. That's altering. We're going to talk about altering. They altered those to then show the world their altered, darkened pictures. That's misleading. That's misrepresenting. We could go on and on and on and on and on with all the misrepresentations and lies that they've told to the court. And the judge is no dummy, dude. She knows most of them. Like, she knows most of them. She's not an idiot. She let them slide. She let them toe that line and step over it numerous times. She should have stopped them in their opening when they talked about Karen being framed. You guys weren't allowed to go with a third-party culprit because you couldn't find a third-party culprit. I honestly think that they will abandon part of the third-party culprit defense in the second trial. I think they will try to go with a more, we don't know who did it, but whoever did it, they must have had a dog. Didn't have to be Chloe this time, just has to be a dog that bit him. Because now we have the impressions of Chloe's bite mark. We already had her bite patterns, but now we have the impressions because Hank Brennan was smart and he went down to where Chloe lives because, shocker, she's alive and the defense has known where she is. The defense was also given the invitation. Of course, most of the time they don't go so that they can say, oh, we didn't go, so we don't know. Like, no, you were invited. You can't then say we don't know what happened because you didn't go. So now when the bite patterns and the impressions and the DNA don't match anything because there's no bites, they'll be able to say, well, we don't know who did it, but that person had to have a dog and the dog attacked. Like, I guarantee, the only way that they could try this case again and not lose just hands down in the first 10 seconds is by trying to wriggle your way through we don't know who did it. This whole pointing the fingers at every single person who was in that house. I told you in the first trial that wasn't going to work, and it's certainly not going to work in the second one. The jury wants to know that if it wasn't her, who the fuck was it? No, the defense does not have to prove who did it. But if you want your client to win, then you have to tell the jury who the hell did it or who you think did it and why. Like, it's common lawyering. Like, come on, man. It's not rocket science here. Like, I mean, I have no doubt that Hank's opening will be amazing. I mean, Lally did a lot. Everybody hates on Lally, and I had a couple criticisms of him. There were some things he should have done and said and whatever, but he still got 3/4 of the jury to vote that she was guilty. So he did a damn good job. You know, that's that's why it's going to be funny to watch the dog bite faker, because all of the evidence in front of her is not going to match what's coming out of her mouth. It's going to be amazing. That's why I said, let her testify. Let ARCCA testify. Hank will just slice and dice. Like he's going to slice every bit of what they say up into a lie salad that they can then eat later on with all their lies. Like, because that's all they've been doing this entire time is following their lies all the way to the courtroom and back out again. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Yep. He went down there. He went there. Like, and that's another thing. Karen's voicemails are not going to help. Her telling the media, Steve, we know who did it. And then in the latest interview saying, well, we don't know who did it. And Jackson saying, and that's not for us to know. Oh, but you knew. But now you don't put. Oh, okay. She's not helping herself. She's like Aiden, doesn't know how to shut the fuck up. And so when you have so many lies that you can't keep track of them anymore and you don't shut the fuck up, then people start finding the contradictions of your stories not lining up because you're lying. The funny thing about the truth is you don't have to worry about telling the story a million times because it's the truth. When you're lying and you can't keep track of your lies anymore, that's when you're like Aiden and Karen have to worry about it. Also, FYI, apparently the Glare got his Twitter back, I heard. I don't know why. That's absurd. But if he steps over that line and starts posting things about my very good friend Lindsay, I will report them, and I would urge everybody else to report them. He has no idea what he's talking about, and he will not be disparaging people who he has never met a day in his life and has no idea what happened. He's seen what Aiden wants him to see. I can't wait until he sees what the Commonwealth shows the world. Then we'll see what he has to say. I actually can't wait until a lot of these people see what the Commonwealth has to show the world when it comes to that trial. There's going to be a lot of people who are just going to disappear. And the other part of them, I don't know. I don't know if anybody will have the balls to actually stand up and apologize to the people that they've hurt by believing every word that comes out of his mouth. But I have no doubt that there will be a lot of people who will feel shameful about the things that they've said and done based upon his lies. And they should. And they should. Like, no, it should be an actual picture. And I think Brennan will definitely, most certainly object to it unless it's a accurate photograph of it can't be AI or made by someone. It has to be accurate. Like, there's no, you don't, if you're using a 3D model, and they can use models, but like you have to be using it in something. It has to, like, you know what I mean? Like there has to be a use for it, like a recreation of the accident or something. Like then they would be allowed to use it, but not just to like show a picture of the house and be like, this is the house. Like that's a digital, that's something someone made, not an actual picture of the house. So the only time you're allowed to use like models and stuff is if you're going to show a recreation. And in that case, they'd be allowed to do it, unfortunately. But again, Hank is not just going to let them do like a lot of the stuff that I felt like, well, you should have objected to last time. Hank's going to object to it. Make no mistake. And his crosses are going to be quite entertaining. And we'll be here to cover it. It'll be great. All right. I love you guys. I have been here for a while. I'm going to go. I'm going to get my little minion off the bus in a minute. But I will pop in with you guys tomorrow. We can have a couple little more discussions about some things. Thank you, obviously, for being with me for 2 hours and 21 minutes, which is a short live of mine. Usually I do them longer, but I was busy this morning. But I appreciate the people who donated. I appreciate you. I love you. If you are in my replay crew and you want to, you know how to. It's at the bottom of the screen. You can do PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. I love you guys, and I will check in with. Also, you guys can always message me. Like me and Freak message all the time. Me and Bree, like, you know, I have Twitter. You can send me information, messages. People do it all the time. Email, twistedstrategies3@gmail. I usually answer fairly quickly unless it's Twitter, because for some reason I don't get notifications. So I do check it every day, most of the time. But I don't get notifications on my phone if I get a Twitter message. So, but my emails, Facebook, I get those right away. Obviously, if you have my number, who has my number, text message, I'll get those right away. But Twitter, most of the time I'm pretty quick. People will tell you I'm pretty quick, but I have to actually go into the app and check it. So It may take me a minute. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. All right. I love you all. I will see you